This is Arts Alive, and I'm Lynda Philippi. My guest today is Jim Morehead, and usually Jim is behind the camera when we shoot this show. So today we've got a little bit of a skeleton crew, you could say, and Jim's here in the catbird seat. So how are you?
I'm well. It feels funny being in front of the camera again.
I know that you've been on the show in the past, and yet I also see by your work that you've got obviously a big new project going on. I'm
doing very different work from what I've done in the past. I was doing wood burning on wood panels and taking the images from old masterpieces that I've always loved, and I did people mostly, but some of them were landscapes. I thought selling and showing in Newburgh, where I live, I should do some landscapes. I've always been fascinated by people, but I figured other people aren't as interested in people's faces from the past as I am. And so I did research on artwork from the past that was landscapes, and I grew to love it. And one piece I've done with the wood burning and acrylics glazes was from Roy Rogers Road that we have a picture of. I drove through there early one morning and saw the moon still in the sky, not as prominent as I portrayed it, and the sun was coming up on the horizon, and it was just incredible how the moonlight was kind of glistening silver-like on this wheat field. So I came back the next day and photographed it during high noon probably, and tried to recreate that look. And so I've become really excited about landscape now, and progressed, I consider it progressed to the waterscapes. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, my wife and I stopped along the North Fork of Wolf Creek, coming back from Seaside, only about 15 or 20 miles from Seaside along Highway 26, and it was gorgeous. And we started taking pictures. We both have cameras, and it was beautiful. And I was overwhelmed, I think because it reminded me so much of the Aquina River, where I lived for 5 years as a teenager. And it just brought me back, and I started painting pictures of it. And we have some here. North Fork Wolf Creek, I did 3 paintings of the North Fork Wolf Creek, and one of them is next to you, and we have others on CD also. That would be this one over here? Very green. That's how I think of Western Oregon, very green and luxuriant.
You know, that's so interesting because I grew up in California, and we'd come to visit relatives in Oregon periodically. And I always thought of Oregon as very green and gray. You know, with California, you think of kind of, I don't know, blue and gold or something. It's just different, although the Bay Area can be pretty gray too. But Oregon, you always think of it as so green. And when I walked into the studio today and I saw this painting, I thought, ooh, I love those colors. They're so vibrant and so intense and rich. It's beautiful.
That's how I always remembered Oregon when I went in the military. I was in for 5 years in the Air Force and went overseas, and it was very interesting.
Where were you?
Well, the most similar environment in the military, in my experience, was in Wiesbaden, Germany.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
The Taunus Hills behind the town and the Rhine River going through, similar to the Willamette. And it was very green, and when I got there, there was talk, it was September, I think it was, and there was talk of the past summer being so hot, it got up to 80 degrees.
Oh my goodness.
But several older people in town suffered heat stroke because they wouldn't take their suits off when they went for their walk.
Oh.
So they weren't used to as warm a weather as we get here.
So you got there just in time for Oktoberfest then?
Yeah, that was good.
I'm thinking, what a welcome, huh?
Yeah.
What a way to welcome yourself to Germany.
It was a festival.
I'm sure it was.
Everyone
How fun.
participated, it seemed. And then I went to Turkey from
did
there.
you?
Yeah. And that was very interesting. Not terribly far from the Mediterranean, but I didn't get to see it, and we could see mountains on the horizon. But it was a wonderful, wonderful valley location where it never got below 60 degrees, and it never got over 80, 82. It
Now,
was
were you
beautiful.
painting back then?
I was painting. I would do a painting once a year.
Oh, really?
In school, I painted more. In my senior year is when I started painting, and I painted quite a bit before graduation and going into the Air Force. But it's been my experience my entire working life that I had enough energy and patience to paint maybe once a year. In Turkey, we had a Turkish houseboy that kept house for us. That's where I was in Armed Forces Radio and television. And somehow the painting I did when I was there of a black jazz singer at a piano disappeared.
Oh.
And I felt very complimented.
Yeah, I would think, yeah, somebody really appreciated it.
Right. And if they care that much they could have gone to jail, you know, whether they were the houseboy or one of the fellas in the barracks. But it's very complimentary that someone wants what you did for fun so much. And that's how I feel now when people purchase the work. I had my biggest sale recently on time payments of triptych, 3 canvases that go together as one picture. And I did it that way because the waterfalls I painted, Nehalem Falls, in the wintertime when it was so full of water, not just a trickle, it was just roaring through. It wasn't just the area where it was what you could call falls, but it was also this kind of canyon of rock it went through. There was so much water that it was roaring through there. It was flooding the flat areas behind the rock shapes, and it was trickling over with little waterfalls between the rocks. And there was so much information that I couldn't do just the falls and be satisfied. I had to do the whole thing, and so I split it into 3 continuous pictures. That was fun.
I kind of like the triptych because I think it gives you a sense of movement.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of an interesting visual, just the break, I guess.
The sense of movement is what I try to capture in the waterfalls, with almost splashing the paint as I work, and having it flip up just like it was doing in real life, and then broiling when it's in that inevitable pool. It's got to slow down somewhere, and it's just got patterns of foam and broiling water. And also the thing I'm trying to capture, waterfall after waterfall, and even the riffles have it, is this oxygenation that happens in the water. The bubbles that are so small, it's like a light area of water flowing underneath the surface, and to catch that is a challenge.
So let me ask you, how do you learn how to paint water? Just by doing it over and over?
Well, doing the painting is the best way to discover things on your own. I've gotten hints from the old masters on how did they do that, and you try to figure it out. And you glazing is a technique that I'm totally in favor of. I've had artists tell me that doing solid paint, opaque paint, gives you the clearest color, and there's different techniques to please different people. And I believe in solid paint, but for water subject matter, and it's even creeping into how I do trees and grass and all the rocks, I glaze, more and more glazing. And I learned glazing when I was working with the acrylics on the wood. I liked to show the wood grain through the picture. And it just didn't work when you're doing a portrait of a pretty girl. The wood grain showing through the complexion wasn't good. So the few times I've tried that.
We get enough lines in our face with age. Right. Don't rush the process.
Yeah. It worked for Rembrandt's face, but it doesn't work for a pretty girl to show those lines. So I've used oil glazes over the acrylic on occasion.
So now are you not doing so much acrylic anymore? You're doing more oil?
Not so much. Not so much. I haven't done an acrylic since I started on this project, but I haven't put it away either. It's right there in my repertoire, waiting for the right picture. I'm actually looking forward to, and I've discussed it with my wife, who's my dedicated partner and keeps me on track with these projects. I want to do waterfalls in the acrylic technique and show wood grain also, and I don't know if it'll work, but it'll be fun to try.
So what made you decide to sort of focus on waterfalls? Is it just that you're very attracted to them as a natural phenomenon?
The waterfalls themselves as the subject or prime subject in the painting came after I started the series, because I started with some riffles in the background. It was the translucent and transparent water that I was attracted to because that's what I grew up with on the Aquinnah River.
Okay.
I'm always looking for fish. That's what started me.
Like to catch or just to see? To
see and the hope of catching. And I
do
qualified.
Do you take a fishing pole when you go?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. And I was always looking forward, when I was in this project for the past year, I was looking forward to getting a fishing license and going fishing and catching fish. But I was so busy with the project, we'd be going almost every weekend to go see waterfalls. It was, it became waterfalls pretty quickly. The first 3 paintings in my series of paintings were North Fork Wolf Creek and riffles in the background, but it soon became the waterfall. But you can see in the waterfall paintings that the waterfall is really, if it was nothing but waterfall, it'd be kind of boring for the artist and for the onlooker.
Right.
There's so much more to a waterfall than the waterfall. There's the deep pools at rest below the waterfalls, the transparent water, the different appearance of the rocks emerging from the water. Some are covered with thick moss, some are glistening bare rock, and there's different colors of rock in there also. It's just becoming, it's growing for me, the enjoyment of doing them. There's the setting around the waterfall. There's so many grottos of interesting shapes of rock and formation of cliffs and the trees that surround them too. I've only omitted the log debris from one painting I've done. It usually adds to the environment. There was one, however, I think it was University Falls in the Tillamook Forest, that had so many logs at the base of it you couldn't even see the pool that I love to depict. And so
out they went.
Out, most of them went. I had to keep some because I didn't know what the pool looked like really. But I wanted some water at the base of that gorgeous waterfall.